District Governor Diane and Bill, past District Governors Mike and Jack, Assistant Governor Sue Story, Rotary friends. This week Canada is being favored by a visit by the Royals from Great Britain, and our club is favored this morning to have Rotary Royals with us, and I'm just delighted to be able to introduce this very special couple to you. They've come all the way from down under to experience our hospitality, and the first of the couple is the First Lady in Waiting of Rotary International, and I'm going to ask Juliet Riseley to stand and be recognized. Juliet is a past district governor of District 9810 in Victoria, Australia. Juliet. Juliet's husband, Ian, is a charter member of we weren't sure about that either, Sandringham Club in Victoria. Ian is a practicing accountant. He's a principal of Ian Riseley and Company, which specializes in advising local and international business and business leaders. He's had a strong interest in international service over the years. A Rotarian since 1978, he has served Rotary in many capacities at the club and at the district level. He was on the Rotary International Executive Committee when he was a member of the board. He's been member of task forces and committees. He's chaired committees. And of course, he is a past district governor himself. He was director of Rotary International 2006 through 2008 and our treasurer in 2007 and 8. He has served as a trustee with the Rotary Foundation of Rotary International. About Ian, you should know that his head and his hands go deep into the volunteer community, the charitable community. He is a member of the Community Advisory Group for the City of Sandringham. He is a member of both private and public school boards in his region, and he's an honorary auditor for a large number of charitable organizations in Australia. He's president of the Beaumont Sea Scouts group. Ian's honors are many, but they include the following. He was the recipient of the Australian government recognition for his work in East Timor by being heralded as an AusAid peace builder, and that award is highly recognized in Australia. He is a recipient of the Medal of Order of Australia for services to the Australian community. That's not unlike our Order of Canada award. And a Regional Service Award for the Polio-Free World from the Rotary Foundation. Ian is also a former member of the Australian Polio Eradication Private Sector Campaign and a recipient of Rotary Foundation's Service Award for a Polio-Free World. He and his wife, Juliet, are multiple Paul Harris Fellows, major donors, and Bequest Society members. They have 2 children, 4 grandchildren. We had a good conversation during the last couple of days, and I know that you will be delighted to hear from one of this warm and delightful couple. And so I ask you now to give a warm welcome to the President-elect of Rotary International, Ian Riseley.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I need to tell you, first of all, that my old friend John Eberhard does not deserve the stick that you give him for the length of his introductions. All right, yes he does. Yes he does. Thank you, John, for the introduction, and Governor and guests and Rotarians. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's always nice to be in Canada. Been here a few times. The weather for the last couple of days here in London has been perfect. Governor Diane tells me it's always like this, and then we had today, so that's good. And in fact, where I come from, 3 days of continuous sunshine means we're in drought, so you should be grateful for the occasional bit of rain, so that's nice. But it is always fun to be in Canada. We were in Toronto in August, and it was amazingly hot and humid, which was a real surprise. And in fact, the folks from Toronto who were here were at the meeting that I was at that time. It was a real surprise to me to be so hot and humid, because I was also here in February when it was neither of those. And these were convention site visits to Toronto, and I have been practicing Toronto, I promise, Toronto. They leave out all the vowels, Toronto, that's good. I had the chance to meet local Rotarians as well as see the place where we'll celebrate the 2018 Rotary International Convention. It's a great place for a convention, and Toronto is a wonderful city. And I'm going to put that there, just in case I knock it off. All right, I'm going to put it here, because I will knock it off. Thank you. Because February in Toronto was a bit of a shock, to my system at least, because my Australian system wasn't quite accustomed to that. But mind you, I had been prepared a little bit because I'd already visited several cities in your great country. And Juliet, was the president's representative at a district conference in Winnipeg in May. Spring in Winnipeg. It was too cold to snow, is what I hear. And I thought, this is the coldest place on earth. I've since broadened my experience of winter weather, and I realised that my initial assessment might have been just a little bit of an exaggeration. I've now spent a lot of time in Evanston, headquarters of Rotary International. Now, it's not Winnipeg and it's not Thunder Bay, but the wind chills do get down a little bit, and there was one occasion where it was got down to about 30 below for a couple of days. And when I heard what the temperature was, I including a wind chill factor, I was trying to convert that to Celsius, and then decided that when it's so cold that your glasses fog up and crack, then probably it doesn't matter, it's still damn cold. But happily, in Rotary we hold our conventions in the most pleasant of months, and so I'm delighted that in my year as the President of Rotary International, we'll hold our convention in your wonderful country, but in June. And I've been told that Toronto has, I'll keep practicing, I promise. In 18 months' time, I'll have it right. Toronto has hosted the RI convention more times than any other city except Chicago. And frankly, I can understand why. And of course, since I was nominated to be president in 2017, 2018, I've been very attentive of any mention in the press of Toronto or Ontario or even Canada. And a few months ago, I spotted a Canadian mention in the BBC travel section. Yes, I can watch the BBC as well. And the heading was, and this is the quote, "The nicest people in the world, question mark." No, be fair, that was a question. And the subject heading was, "Can Canada teach the rest of us to be nicer?" It was written by a BBC staff writer in America, in fact in New York, about his summer trip north to Toronto. And I'd like to quote briefly from the article. He said, "Canada niceness is pure and untainted by the passive-aggressive undertones found in American niceness. It's also abundant. Canada is to niceness as Saudi Arabia is to oil. It's a wash in the stuff." That's what he said. And he concludes, "The world, I think, would be a better place if we were all a bit more Canadian." Now I say hear, hear to that. Now, without trying to piggyback on Canada's sterling reputation, I do think Australians and Canadians are very similar people. Everyone follows Fran's guidance. Notice that? John, they ignore you, but they follow Fran. That's good. We share a British heritage and have, to a greater or lesser extent, moved on from that. We rejoice in the stable political and judicial system that we've inherited. We know the proper way to spell such words as honour, colour, recognise, and Z. And frankly, we don't care what Microsoft spell checker tells us about those words. We also still take an active involvement in the British Commonwealth, although in our case, to be fair, it's probably more to pick up some easy medals at the Commonwealth Games than anything else. Now I'm mentioning Commonwealth Games, I am a self-confessed sports nut, and I take teams right around the world that I support and follow their interests. And I know that sport's a big thing here in Canada as well. So I realised when I was nominated and therefore worked out that my convention would be in Toronto, that I was going to have to find myself a Canadian team to cheer for. Now, no, I couldn't start barracking for the Blue Jays because my allegiance to the mighty Boston Red Sox is very strong. And those of you going, I would point you towards the latter at the moment. I was a group study exchange team leader to the great city of Boston in 1997. So I became a fan of the Red Sox then, visited Fenway Park, and I love them. So I wasn't going to abandon them and get onto the Blue Jays. The Raptors were also out because they have no Australians playing for them, unlike the vast majority of other NBL teams. However, I can tell you that I had a genuinely life-changing experience in Toronto in February, and one that you may be surprised to hear had nothing to do with Rotary. Instead, the heavens opened up for me at the Air Canada Centre, where we watched the Maple Leafs, and I've even got this right, I used to call them the Maple Leaves. The Maple Leafs beat the New Jersey Devils. Yeah, well, it may be that. I'm coming to that. Now, the Leafs, my Leafs, were trailing 2-1 with 2 minutes and 6 seconds in regulation remaining. They equalised and then won in a shootout at the end. So we got a lot of extra hockey and it was a terrifically exciting game. So exciting that I'm now an official fan of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I have a jersey to prove it. And in fact, at the last convention committee meeting, they presented myself and Gordon McAnally, who's my convention chair, with official Maple Leafs jerseys. I have the coach number on my back and he has the captain number on his back, which is good. Of course, when it comes to my Leafs, the season didn't end exactly as we would have hoped. But, okay, they were lousy. But in fact, there were many ways that sport reflects Rotary. For one thing, you get a new start every year. For another, we don't waste time licking our wounds or resting on our laurels, we just keep moving forward. Ideal for the Leafs. Anyway, it's the usual procedure that once you settle on a team, that you're supposed to follow that team through thick and thin. And when it comes to Australian rules football, anyone here's ever seen, even on television, Australian rules football? Yeah, okay, so you know it's a bit of a strange game. But I broke that rule about supporting through thick and thin, and it's haunted me ever since. My father supported a team called Geelong. Geelong, who yesterday lost in the preliminary final, one step short of our version of the Super Bowl. So because my father followed Geelong, I did the same since early childhood. I went to games with him, even when Geelong, their nickname is the Cats, the blue and white hoop jerseys. Even when they finished on the absolute bottom of the ladder, I followed the Geelong Cats. And then the tide turned. And they actually won the premiership twice. However, as an act of rebellion, and these things happen when you're a teenager, when I was 16, I said to my father, I'm not following that team anymore. I switched. I switched to the Melbourne Football Club, which had won the premiership the year before, in 1964. Melbourne has not won a premiership since. They're the Australian equivalent of the Chicago Cubs, which is bad news. But this could be the year of the Cub, you never know. And you know what? It serves me right. So you see, I have an astonishing record of turning the tide of success when I come on board with a team. And let's all hope that this power comes into full effect in the 16-17 NHL season. Of course, I have a few other things on my mind in 16-17, and I want to quickly talk about a few of those today. This is a very exciting year in Rotary. It is, as I hope you all know, the centennial year of our Rotary Foundation. We'll be celebrating that centennial in grand style at our International Convention, which is in Atlanta, Georgia, in June. And now, in case you didn't make it to our Rotary Centennial Convention in Chicago in 2005, and hands up those who were at that. Oh, quite a few, excellent. Well, the others of you, if you didn't make it to that, this is your last chance for a centennial celebrating convention until you go to the one in 2105, I mean. So be sure not to miss it. It'll be fun. And there are many ways to mark our foundation centennial before next June, and we're asking that all Rotary clubs and districts find a way to mark this milestone at their major meetings this year. We talk a lot about public image in Rotary and how important that is. The Rotary Foundation Centennial Year is a great opportunity to raise the profile of our foundation and all of Rotary, and we shouldn't let it pass us by. There's lots of ideas that you can get off the Rotary.org website for ways in which you can celebrate the Foundation Centennial, and share it on Facebook and Twitter and all those other modern things that younger folks know all about, and I've been dragged screaming to Facebook, but it's all good fun. Spread the word. And of course, there's no Rotary Foundation without Rotary. And there's no great service without Rotarians to do it. And I mentioned before some of the many things that your country and mine have in common. Unfortunately, among the many positives we share, we also share a long-term trend of negative growth in our Rotary membership. Excuse me. Overall membership in Rotary is going up, but frankly, it's no thanks to us or to the United States or Western Europe. Now, some might take the approach that as long as we hold our overall membership numbers steady, then it's okay, it's all right. But I would strongly disagree with that, because for Rotary to be most effective, we need to be strong in all parts of the world, and it would be extremely short-sighted of us to shrug off declining membership in some of the most established sectors of the Rotary world. And having spent a couple of days in the company of your Dynamo District Governor, I know that you're doing lots of things in this part of the world to keep membership on the up, and that's terrific. In some parts of the world, I just mentioned this because it's some parts of the world, it's not here, but we have a bit of an image problem to go along with our membership problem. We're sometimes perceived in some parts of the world as something of an anachronism, a men's club that is social in nature, elitist in outlook, and probably not as relevant to modern society as it should be. Now, we can work on the PR side as much as we like, and it's important that we do, but we also have to work on the reality of our clubs. Now, I have to say, I look around at this club and you have fun here, you do lots of good stuff, you just made an excellent contribution to a wonderful local group, so you do lots of good stuff here. And that's what makes Rotary special. You do good stuff. Stuff is an Australian expression. You do really good work, and I encourage you to keep doing that. In Canada, you're doing better than most countries in tackling the impression that Rotary is for men only. Now, I am an accountant, as John said in his introduction, so I do have the occasional figure here. So bear with me, this is paradise for me. Canada is well above the Rotary average in terms of gender balance. So here's the figures. The most recent stats I had, which were a couple of weeks ago, there were 23,896 Rotarians in Canada. At the moment, 7,547 of them are women. When I say at the moment, I'm not proposing that the women change. What I'm saying is that there are 7,547 women out of 23,896 members. Now, those of you that have the sort of steel trap mind like mine would have worked out that that's about 31%. And it's certainly better than the 21%, which is the overall position in Rotary. Better than we're doing in Australia, frankly, and we're 22 or 3. Or your neighbours to the south in the USA and Mexico. So I absolutely and sincerely congratulate you on that. But the percentage of women in Rotary in Canada and in almost every country in the world is still short of the percentage that it should be, which is 50. Half of the world's population are women, so it's not rocket science that half the people in Rotary should be women as well. There'll always be those who say we simply can't find qualified women to join the clubs, and I've heard this so many times. To them, I would simply say, look harder. I promise you, they're out there. And if the true problem is not that women are unqualified for Rotary, but they're uninterested in Rotary, then we need to be looking harder, but not at them, but at our clubs. We have to be attractive to all aspects of society. And hands up the lady Rotarians here, please. There's lots of you. Well, that is super. You have made a huge difference to our organisation. We are so much better off because you're with us. So thank you. Thank you. As I mentioned, and I'll say it again, I'm an accountant, I like numbers. And I now rejoice in the unfettered access I have to the expansive and detailed records that Rotary keeps on its clubs and members around the world. But the data is only as good as the data that's input. And there's a bit of a, let's call it a gaping hole, and that is the age of our members. Apparently, many people don't like telling us how old they are. I'll tell you I'm 69 years old, just in case you asked. So what we need to do is be conscious of the fact that we need to renew our membership on an ongoing basis. It's just essential because I'm sort of in practice, sort of. If you ring the office, they'll answer it that way, but I'm seldom there. So therefore, now that I don't have as much access to clients, etc., as I used to have, how do I introduce another accountant to my club? Because I've lost contact, I've retired. So therefore, it behoves all of us to renew our vocational activity in our clubs, to bring in another accountant while we're still meeting them on a regular basis. To me, that's really important. The other thing that we can do to renew our clubs is to stay close to Rotaractors. Is there a Rotaract club attached to this club? There is, okay. Is it a strong and thriving Rotaract club? It's a hoo-hoo club, excellent, okay. I'm taking it that's local for hoo-hoo is good, yes?
200 members in one and about 15 in the other.
200 Rotaractors in one club?
It's the largest in the world.
That's more than all Rotaractors in Australia, I think. So that's impressive. Well, you will have noticed the good news is that in the past, and I railed against this and was very keen to see it challenged at the recent Council on Legislation, if a person was a Rotaractor, they weren't able to be a Rotarian at the same time. So if you had someone aged, say, 30 who was a successful business entrepreneur, etc., and they wanted to join Rotary, you would normally grab them. But if they were already a Rotaractor, you weren't allowed to. Now, how stupid is that? So at the last COL, that was changed. So this 200 plus that you're talking about, a strong, close relationship with those Rotaractors may encourage them into Rotary when their time in Rotaract finishes. That's a really good thing to do. Worldwide, our conversion of Rotaractors to Rotary membership is nowhere near good enough. And we're talking there about people who already identify with Rotary, our ethos, what we do, they're part of the Rotary family. They're more inclined, surely, to join because they know what we are. So we should keep a close eye out on them. Youth Exchange is strong here, I know. I was heavily involved in Youth Exchange when I was even younger than I am now, and which obviously was a long time ago. And youth exchange is, again, a great way for people, young people, that they understand Rotary. And then we lose sight of them. So we really need to keep track of our youth exchange alumni, our rebounders, or whatever you want to call them, Rotex kids, young people, and make sure that if they are interested in Rotary, that they have the opportunity to join. They're captives already. We should be looking at them. And like Rotaractors, no qualified Rotaractor should end their Rotaract career without having the opportunity to visit with a Rotary club on a regular basis and see if they want to join and see if you want them to join. And I'll tell you one thing for an absolute fact, and that is that they will lower your average age. Again, call me an accountant if you wish, but I'll guarantee that one. And I'm absolutely blown away by the fact that you've got so many Rotaractors here. That is fantastic. You're obviously doing something really good, so that's great. I also know that you've got a new satellite club for youngish people. Well, I say youngish, which is, again, fantastic. That's a way of involving younger people, and I met a couple of the folks earlier, in Rotary when otherwise maybe they couldn't, so that's terrific. And don't forget, we still have to have a quantity of quality. We can't lower our standards just for numbers. We don't want to increase our numbers to 1.3 million or 1.4 million or 1.5 million just for the numbers. It's nice to be able to brag about an organisation that's that size. But what we really want to brag about is an organisation that's large in its impact, and that's what we are. So we're working to bring in members so that we can have not just a bigger, but a stronger Rotary, a Rotary that'll be able to do more good for more people in a more lasting fashion in the ways and places where it's needed most. And we know that the need is there. We know that. In order to get to that point, we need clubs that are friendly and welcoming, just like you are here, to every qualified Rotarian. We need to be planning ahead, not just from year to year, but beyond. The concept of my year or this year is crazy. We've got a long-term plan. We work towards the long-term goals. That's what we have to do. That's what we do in business. Why wouldn't we do it in Rotary? Because, frankly, ultimately, the future of Rotary isn't decided at our office in Evanston by any RI president, John Germ, me, or anyone. It'll be decided by all of you, by the Rotarians who see the value of Rotary to its members, to its communities, and the world. And I had the chance, Juliet and I had the chance to see some of the activities that you have in your part of the world yesterday when John and Fran took us around. And that you do terrific work, and I congratulate you on that. Rotarians know that a world without, not without, a world with Rotary is much better than one without it. And we all, I hope, want to be sure that Rotary stays around, not just for us, but for generations to come. We're really enjoying our trip around Ontario. It's nice to meet different folks, to see how you do things differently, and to have the chance to congratulate you on all the great work that you do, and you do. I thank you, Juliet and I thank you for your hospitality this afternoon, and urge you to keep doing the fantastic work that you're doing. Thanks.
President-elect Ian. Thank you very much for that speech. Don't go away yet. We have a presentation, for a thank you for your presentation, and we'll immunize 50 infants against polio.
Sensational.
Thank you.